morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters by Anfield Index. Ladies and gents, it is within touching distance. That 20th league title. It's insane to even contemplate the fact we can actually win it in 6 days' time. But there we are. There's a lot to talk about with yesterday. There's a lot to talk about with the coming future as well. And here to join me as ever is the renowned and the respected David Lynch. I mean, almost fast forward into the end here, David. I mean, yeah, we would have liked to have kept a clean sheet. Yeah, we could have played better second half, which we'll get into. But there's sometimes no better way to win it than an 89th minute in front of the Kop, is it? And that massive let-off in Anfield.
Yeah, exactly. That's the weird thing about football, is that kind of the closer you come to having something ripped away from you, the better it feels when you do get over the line. And so, to concede an equaliser in the 85th minute, you think, oh, they've thrown it away again. And, the stakes aren't that high because Liverpool, even if they draw that game, they're a point closer to winning the title. They're still going to win it. But it's kind of, everybody's wrapped up in the nerves of it. They want to get it over the line as quickly as possible. So, that goal goes in. It's a little bit of a sickener, and it had felt like it was coming as well. And so to then just go straight up the other end and get the winner and get it late enough that you feel that you have won the game was just absolutely massive. And I think you could see from the celebrations for the goal, for at full time, players, fans, everything, just how much that meant. In the grand scheme of things, it's not necessarily the 3 points you will look back on and say that's where the title was won, because like I say, it was probably already wrapped up anyway. But to move a step closer, it just felt absolutely massive, didn't it? And it was a great, I've seen a little talk about the atmosphere yesterday, but I think in those kind of last 10, 15 minutes or so, it was absolutely up there with anything we've seen this season. And, it was there when it was needed, and fans turned it on, the players turned it on, and it was just kind of a magic moment, really. And there's been a few magic moments in this season, and you wouldn't have thought a seemingly kind of half meaningless game against West Ham towards the end of the season would be that. But I think it did turn into a really good day in the end, and it was you should always relish those ones where you kind of win it late on at the Kop end, and especially when you've nearly thrown the points away near at the death as well.
Yeah, they had a good goal, but it is the best way to win it. And that stadium was rocking for that end period as well. No two ways about it. And for the match, it almost feels like it was a reverse of what we normally expect from Arne Slot and Liverpool. As in, the standard's been a slow first half. We're sort of feeling the opposition out. Second half, Slot makes the adaptation. Sometimes substitutes make the difference, and we go on from there. That's been the MO for this season. Yesterday, was it almost a reverse of that, where the first half was really good, the second half really wasn't, and the subs actually kind of depreciated how well we were doing? It just felt like a complete reversal, didn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Not used to it kind of playing out that way, really, over the course of this season. As you say, they've generally been poor in first halves and good in the second. And, when they started the first half and played as well as they did, you kind of thought, oh, well, this could end up being quite a comfortable win because Liverpool looked like they're really on it. The pressing was there. They were creating chances at will. They were largely limiting West Ham pretty well. To kind of, you look at them kudos efforts, that probably the closest they come, and one's a really dinked, incredible effort. The other one's from absolutely miles out. So you kind of, Liverpool were kind of, they looked well balanced and they looked up for it. But I think the longer it goes on, when you don't get your second goal, there's always that potential for nerves and always that potential to have the question in the back of your mind of kind of, do we push for another, or do we just hold what we've got at the moment? And kind of Liverpool, I think, found themselves trapped in that a little bit. And that's why it felt like the kind of performance got progressively worse as the game went on. And I think you're right to mention substitutes as well. I think, again, that's been a calling card for Slot for so long, hasn't it? In his debut season, that he's got those right and always made Liverpool better. But I actually think they kind of made Liverpool worse yesterday. So you can't, you can give him a pass on those ones because he usually gets it absolutely bang on. But I don't think the subs helped Liverpool in any way. So yeah, it all kind of added up to West Ham being pretty dominant in that second half. And I mean, one thing I will say about that, you kind of look at the expected goals and the chances West Ham do have in that second half. They're very dominant in possession and they're making Liverpool work, but they're actually not absolutely banging the door down in terms of the chances. You know, they're not carving Liverpool open. I will, you know, time and time again, I will say that. They do end up with quite low XG from that second half. So, and I think that kind of tells a story, really, that creatively they weren't quite where they needed to be to get something. But they were definitely dominant in possession. Liverpool couldn't get the ball off them, and they, you know, kept turning it over time and again. And West Ham were just, they were very good in that second half without maybe just completely creating all the chances they should have. So, it's not what we're used to. And Liverpool kind of had to ride that out. And you get to the 85th minute thinking you've done it. Then the ball bounces in off two of your players, and it's a bit of a nightmare. But of course, all's well that ends well if you win the game in the end. Particularly at this time of the season, I don't think anybody should be too bothered about the performance level, to be honest.
No, it doesn't feel that way. It's the end of the season. You're at the business end. You either win or you don't. The performance is a second thought a little bit, somewhat at this stage. But talking about players, and it's right to it, and especially that first half. I mean, two players in the attack, Mo Salah and Luis Diaz. And I do want to look at these or talk about these individually. There was a bit, if those in the ground would have heard it, where Mo Salah was that dominant over the young fullback for West Ham. Curtis Jones passes him the ball and literally screams for those that heard it, kill him. That was the exact words that came out of Curtis Jones's mouth, because he was riding roughshod over that fullback in the first half. And the assist is brilliant, but he had him on toast first half, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you almost kind of felt a little bit sorry for Scarles there being thrown in against that, because, you know, Mo, he's had maybe a couple of off weeks that we've kind of talked about where he's not quite been there. And I mean, he looked firmly back to his best yesterday. Yeah. Like you say, he had the defender on toast, didn't he? Just time and time again in that first half, and different ways of doing it as well. You know, some great first touches to deceive him, or sometimes just leaving the ball and letting it run and using his pace, which again, you know, we talk about, how he might kind of decline, or, you know, the physical metrics or whatever. And he didn't look slow at all to me yesterday. He looked absolutely bang on, and, you know, it just shows the quality and the variation he's got in his game in terms of how he can hurt you with his passing, with his pace, with his dribbling. You know, he's so complete, isn't he? And I guess that was just another one of those games where he shows that, and he gets an absolutely superb assist. I mean, he's now on 18 for the season. That record looks gettable. I really would love him to get that, because I think it would just show, you know, if he gets it, he'll have a couple of golden boots, or really 3 golden boots will it be if he gets this one? But also to get that creator award, but beyond that as well, the playmaker award, to beat the record that Thierry Henry set all those years ago, and De Bruyne are obviously matched. I mean, that would really underline just how phenomenal he is, and how good this season's been, but how good he's been generally. So I'd love to see him break that. And yeah, he's one step closer to doing that with a brilliant assist.
Yeah, and to, even as it says on the screen for those that can't see it, 45 goal contributions so far, and he's not even played 38 games. He's already broken the record from Haaland and Thierry Henry. It's just insane how good he was yesterday. And the other side, the other winger, Luis Diaz, he's had a little bit of a purple patch, you could say. Scored against Fulham. I know it's defeat last week, but scored again. And he's on 15 goals now. It shouldn't be ignored, his contribution yesterday, should it?
Yeah, he's had a really good season, to be honest. I mean, some of the stick he gets from time to time, I think is incredibly unfair. I mean, he clearly at Liverpool, you know, would look at that as a position where maybe they could get a little bit more in terms of end product there. And, you know, I don't think they think that he's perfect, but he's also not absolutely terrible either. And, you know, I don't think it's any coincidence we've seen his form surge again since he's been restored to the left-hand side, which is his natural position. He did a great job in that centre forward role for someone who's not a natural, but he is a left winger. And I think when you put him back out there, you see, you know, arguably the best of him. And, you know, that is kind of finishing off chances like that. His dribbling's excellent. Work rate is, you can never, ever question that with him. He leaves absolutely everything on the pitch, and he gets Liverpool up the pitch as well. So he's been a big part of this title win this season. And obviously there's a few question marks about what kind of happens with him, and we'll see about that. But there's no doubt in his contribution this season. And I think he, you know, again, good to see him back in the team, good to see him back in the goals, and good to see him back in form. But I think it really does help that he's on that left-hand side where he is far more natural.
Yeah, he'd always just look a different player, even though he's played that false nine, leading the line for us at times. He did just look on it yesterday. And I mean, speaking of players that were on it yesterday, let's just have a listen to what Alisson Becker said after the game, because his performance was insane.
Times you've done it as a team, even with the 9 seconds and you suffer that setback, you still feel as though Liverpool will find a way to get back in the game.
Yeah. It's really disappointing when you concede a goal like that. We know our responsibility on the goal. Sometimes you have to clap hands to the opponents because they deserve for the way they play, but was really poor from us for 15-20 minutes defensive wise, giving too much space. But then we have to highlight the energy, the intensity we put at the end of the match after conceding the goal to get the winner at the last minutes and keep defending, keep the result. Football is about that as well. Not always you're gonna have a clear performance, clear game.
I mean, does it say everything about Alisson Becker's performance that a West Ham player couldn't beat him? It took his own teammate to stick it into the net for him to concede, because it shouldn't be ignored. He was insanely good yesterday, wasn't he?
Yeah, and we talk about quite a lot how kind of Queeveen Kelleher is really, really good, isn't he? He's an excellent backup goalie, and you're never kind of too worried when he comes in. But I think, across the last 2 games, you've seen that there is that little step, isn't there, between these two, or maybe a big step, really, because this guy is, just the best goalkeeper in the world, really. It just isn't in doubt for me at all. Every aspect of his game is top class, but it's like, when the opposition go through for a one-on-one, you always kind of feel in favour of the goalkeeper when it's Liverpool, and that isn't natural. That's not normal. And I guess, there's going to be a time when he leaves in the next couple of seasons or so where Liverpool fans are going to have to get used to the fact that, like I say, that isn't normal. That they're going to do very well if you find another goalkeeper who's like that, in terms of just charges out and seems to save everything. He's just, he's outrageous. And it's not just those ones where he comes out, makes himself big, like the Bowen one was a really good save, really smart save. But, tipping the Kudus effort onto the bar, the agility he shows for that, and then he's great with his feet as well. He's just got absolutely everything. And I think, the key thing for him really is just the calmness he exudes. He never seems kind of flustered and rushed. And I guess that allows him to be really, really good technically when he comes out, and he and some other things, and always be really alert. He's dead switched on, because he's never in a mode where he's kind of panicking at all. It's, I think character and composure is a big part of why he's such a good goalkeeper. But the fact is, Liverpool don't get the chance to win that game if he isn't as good as he is yesterday. No, and he's just a top class player. He's in that real upper echelon of players that Liverpool have got, where you could argue they're the best in the world, they're the best in their position, and that is Van Dijk, Mo Salah, and Alisson. Really, they are just 3 absolute all-timers in their position, and they've been a big part of why Liverpool have won so much while they've been around, including this kind of latest Premier League title.
Yeah, they just are elite. And I mean, Alisson was man of the match and awarded it quite rightly. Virgil van Dijk, an interesting one, maybe. I mean, I thought he was brilliant up until the own goal debacle, which he admitted afterwards he played a part in. And he does breathe a sigh of relief. But overall, he was still very, very good. Again, it almost felt like, having been a few dipping weeks, this was Van Dijk back to his best, and the header, brilliant for redemption, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a funny one with the goal. I mean, you watch back and Robertson, he's the one who scores it, but he looks really annoyed with Virgil, which I imagine maybe has something to do with, he must have given him a shout. He must have said, I'm coming through here, and Van Dijk still put his leg out, and that's caused the confusion, which must have been why Robertson was so annoyed. And it's funny with Robertson, actually, just to quickly talk about him, is that he's not had overall his season's not been of the standards he usually sets. I don't think he's been as bad as been made out, but he's clearly not. He's not in his peak years anymore, and he's not. But he's so unlucky as well, so many times. You think about the penalty that's just outside the box against Southampton, the other own goal. He's kind of, or things have just been deflecting off him. He's had a few issues, and again, this one, his own teammate kicks the ball off him and into the back of the net. So I feel for him a little bit. But yeah, because I think Van Dijk more than played his part in that. But the important thing in those moments then is, can you have the composure when your big moment comes? Can you redeem yourself? And obviously Van Dijk does that. Brilliantly placed header. He doesn't try and kind of blast it in or anything. He just places it. He knows that's enough to just cushion it back into the other corner. And it's a brilliant header, brilliant moment. I think his celebration just felt massive, didn't it? I just think kind of, he talks a lot to us kind of behind the scenes about how much he loves Liverpool, and it never feels like he's just paying lip service. It genuinely feels heartfelt. And then to see him kind of run off to the cop going crazy and kissing the badge, he really does mean it. He really does love Liverpool, and he's so happy to be there for a little bit longer and pleased about the contract. So it's a great moment, but he's come up with so many of those. I mean, at the end of the day, he marked his debut by scoring a late winner against Everton, and so we've known for a while he's had these moments in him. But that was another one to kind of add to the list, really.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And just that small things are written when small moments. They could have been so different from sort of the 85th minute or whatever it was to the 89th, but we take it no two ways about it. Conor Bradley is what I want to talk about as well, because he won't get headlines, Conor Bradley. He's not for a performance that was for the ages or anything like that. But just Liverpool having a natural right back, it made all the difference in terms of the effect on others yesterday, didn't it?
Yeah, it's like I said, I think it's no coincidence he comes onto the pitch and all of a sudden against Fulham and Salah is suddenly in the game. And then yesterday, the first half, Salah's, so dominant because there's this other threat down the right-hand side that really helps to kind of create space and link up with him. I think he's absolutely massive. I mean, the key thing with Bradley as well is, spoken about the effect an orthodox right back can have on Salah and the team in general. And it's not just that they've missed trends, but it's also Conor Bradley is absolutely brilliant. Like, we've spoken before, and I want to emphasize this point. I would like, in the event that Trent leaves, which is what we expect to happen, that he be the first choice right back for Liverpool next season. He is easily good enough. It's not even a question for me. I think Liverpool have to replace certain elements of what Trent brings in other parts of the team, but Conor Bradley is a good enough right back to play for Liverpool, no doubt about that. And he's shown that since he's come back. I mean, we talked about the substitutes not quite working for Liverpool actually, and I think one of the things that hurt them was bringing Conor Bradley off. I thought he played really well again and was linking with Salah really nicely. You replace his ability on the ball and everything else with Quansah, who's not quite as comfortable there. It just didn't work. And like I say, Conor Bradley he brings balance to the team in the absence of Trent, but he also is just a top class player. So really looking forward to seeing him continue to develop. And it's looking like a vacancy is going to open up there where he's going to get more chances. So he deserves them, and I am very much looking forward to that.
One question that's coming in the chat panel, and there's one more player I want to ask about, but this one's coming up from a few. When we win the league, and it is when, not if, do we play the remaining games? It says as if drunk, or do we play with freedom that seems to be missing from our recent games? What are you when the league gets won? Do you think there will be a bit of a switch off like 1920 where it almost didn't matter? Or do you think there will be some almost playing for the futures into the summer a little bit, or don't know what to expect in that regard?
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because it's Slot. I mean, I know he doesn't love rotation and likes to keep a balanced side. The fact is, they'll want to get as many points as possible, by the way, just to kind of quieten any talk that this isn't a deserving side or whatever. So, right. I'm sure they would love to get 90 odd if they possibly can, or just to break 90. That would be important for them. So, I'm sure they'll want to go strongish, but it does give an opportunity, and I want to see this of a couple being given opportunities. The obvious one, isn't it, is Chiesa. Would love to see a little bit more of him, and can he make something of it? Is this second season at Liverpool actually going to be something, or is he just going to be sold this summer? We'll have to see. But I think, I'd love to see a little bit more of him. And like I say, they will be motivated. It's just maybe not going to kind of be absolutely sprinting round and putting everything on the line, because they don't necessarily need to. But I'm sure that there's enough quality there, even at kind of 99% sometimes, to get a few wins. And I think if you do bring in someone like Chiesa, he will be hungry, he will be desperate to prove a point. So Maybe hopefully there's a little bit of that going on, and that can help Liverpool. Harvey Elliott's another one who could come in for minutes there. They will be hungry and want to get wins and want to show they can do a little bit more next season. So that's what I kind of like to see, is a little bit of a few changes through the team, which could maybe add that little bit of hunger in and get them over the line with maybe push them past that 90-point mark if they can.
Yeah, for anyone that saw Chiesa on the bench, he was kicking every ball and getting involved. So it's clear that he's desperate to get involved in some element.
Just to come in on that, sorry, Dave, but this is the thing with Chiesa that's making me think, any other season, any other situation, I'd be like, he's absolutely he's going to go this summer. There's no question about it. But the degree to which he is absolutely invested in the Liverpool cause, and I've seen this all the way through the season, that how happy he seems to be there. The fact his agent is saying that he wants to make something of it still, it just suggests to me that there's a chance he's still here next season. And I would like to see that, because I think there's a really good player there. So it's a really interesting one. And like I say, maybe the point at which Liverpool get it over the line, maybe that's when we do start to see him.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if he does get a run, and what position as well, because he talked about the right, but he's played in the middle. It will be fascinating to keep an eye on. One player I'm not sure we're going to see again, Darwin Nunez. I mean, this one was interesting, and there's a couple of bits, and maybe it's just my suspicious nature with this, but the club didn't confirm it until after the game. Now, normally when players are ill, there's usually yourself or other journalists will get that information before and tweet it, so we know who's not going to be in the squad in that regard. But Darwin Nunez was apparently ill. That's what Arne Slot said afterwards. And yet he was sat with the subs. He was mixing with the squad and drinking his mate on the bench behind. And am I just being too cynical with all of this? Or to me, that feels like, and I'm going to use these words carefully, potential asset protection going on there, it feels like a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about this one, because a few rumours doing the rounds prior to the team coming out, I would say, about maybe some sort of encounter in training or something had gone on there. And then, of course, then he's not in the squad. It makes you think. And for me, that illness explanation doesn't make sense, in that you wouldn't want him mixing with his teammates. You wouldn't want the risk of him sharing that around the squad, particularly when, you're in a moment where the title's still on the line. So something kind of quite doesn't add up there. But I've not had, anything stood up in a concrete way that would make me want to say anything here publicly about that. But I'm slightly, I'm not sure the manager's explanation kind of adds up for me, really. I think there's maybe something else kind of gone on there. But, you'd still like to think that if there has been any kind of clashes or whatever, or any disagreements, that, he can come back into the squad for the final 6 games of the season and play a part. I mean, if we all know, and just been saying this for ages, he is going at the end of the season. There's no question about that. So it's kind of, what can he contribute between now and then? So let's see if there's a few more moments for him, a few more minutes. He doesn't have to leave on a kind of negative note, does he? It clearly hasn't worked out for him at Liverpool, but I mean, he's played his part in this title win if it comes about. You think of big moments against Brentford, for example. So he will deserve his winner's medal, absolutely. So let's just hope it kind of ends on a positive note, rather than being dragged down into any negativity, because there's just no need for it at the end of the day, I guess.